On the day I entered the palace for selection, my childhood sweetheart got married. He thought he was marrying me, but the person sitting in the bridal sedan was my younger sister. We passed each other on the busy street, going in opposite directions. Once you enter the palace, it's like entering a deep sea. I struggled in the palace and watched other women die. After I ascended the throne, the boy who pulled my braids in private school when I was a child would appear in my dreams. 1. The carriage entering the palace collided with the wedding procession from Pingyang Marquis' mansion, and I lifted the curtain to look. Through the gauze, I saw Zhang Ziyu riding a big horse at the front of the crowd. He was dressed in wedding clothes, looking in high spirits, with an unconcealable smile on his handsome face. He would secretly look back at the sedan chair from time to time. The groom is not allowed to see the bride 3 months before the wedding, and the bride is not allowed to leave the house. He also accompanied her and stayed in the mansion without going out, copying down and memorizing all the etiquette procedures one by one, for fear of making any mistakes. In order to marry me, he did whatever the Marquis asked him to do, including building relationships and gaining experience in the military. He did not believe in Buddhism, but he obediently copied Buddhist scriptures in the ancestral hall for 3 days and then took them to the palace to present them to the Empress Dowager. But he is the most unrestrained and free-spirited boy in Kyoto and has always been flamboyant. When has he ever followed the rules like this? Whenever I think of these, my heart aches inch by inch. When we passed each other, somehow he suddenly turned around and looked at the 2 inconspicuous black-covered carriages I was in. My heart stopped suddenly, and I even forgot to lower the curtain until my maid Mo Xiang reminded me. "Miss, we are almost at the palace gate." Only then did I come to my senses and let down the curtain. But I was wearing a veil, so even if he saw me, he wouldn't recognize me. I don't know what I'm afraid of or what I'm looking forward to. I could only lower my eyes silently and listen to the sounds of gongs and drums gradually fading away. This time, she entered the palace, although it was said to be a selection, but in fact it had already been decided. After the administration was successfully rectified, the Empress Dowager granted a gift and selected the daughters of several meritorious officials to enter the palace. Among them was my father, and between me and my sister, he chose me without hesitation. Those ladies from noble families had red eyes when they got off the carriages and said goodbye to their families reluctantly. I understand that once you enter the palace, it is like entering a deep sea, and you may never have the chance to see them again in this life. But no one came to see me off. My brother, parents, are all happily busy sending Chung Jinxiu off to get married today. I didn't feel too excited. I followed the guiding nanny quietly to the front of the hall and waited for fate to decide. The palace has red walls and green tiles, and every tall gate is heavily guarded, as if there were layers of locks on the palace walls. Someone asked if the emperor was a good person. The nanny looked back at the simple and timid girl and said, "The emperor and the empress dowager are kind by nature. Miss, please be careful with your words." I recognized her. She was Li Wan, the only daughter of the general's mansion. She had always been raised to be innocent and naive, and had no concern for worldly matters. I heard that General Li submitted several memorials saying that his daughter was ill and could not enter the palace to serve, but the Empress Dowager stopped him every time. After all, although he loved his daughter dearly, he could not resist the power of the royal family. Unlike my father, I knelt in front of him for a long time, but only got 2 slaps in the face. "Cheng Shiwan, you don't have the final say in this family. Marriage is a matter that has always been decided by parents. Besides, this is a gift from the royal family. Who doesn't want to marry into the royal family? This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. If you weren't the legitimate daughter of the Chung family, how could it be your turn?" Don't be ungrateful. I looked up at his impatient face and couldn't help but smile bitterly. Since we are both legitimate daughters, why didn't father let Chung Jinxiu go? Is it because I don't have a mother? My father's eyes widened, and before he could say anything, Zhang knelt down and cried, Jinxiu is only 15, as young as a flower, and the emperor is old, already over 50. Master, how can you bear it? But I'm only 17. Before I could finish my words, I was slapped in the face again. Zhang held my furious father aside and advised, Shi Yuan is ignorant. Master, don't bother with the child. Everyone wants to enter the palace, but I only want one Zhanziyu. My father finally swung his sleeves and said, Anyway, I've already reported your name. If you don't go, your whole family, including your grandparents, will be buried with you. When I came back to my senses, I had already arrived in front of the palace. The emperor was sitting far away on a high platform. I couldn't see his face clearly, but his figure looked very old. Some people were already sobbing quietly, pitying the future. I clenched my palms and took a deep breath. Just as I was ready to face my fate, the emperor actually decided not to make a choice. This selection was changed to select a concubine for the prince. The emperor has few children, only 3 sons, the king of the south, the king of the north, and the crown prince. The young lady's worries turned into joy, and they began to secretly look at the prince's present. I saw that the 2 princes were very interested, but the youngest prince looked unhappy. He didn't seem to be happy about choosing a concubine. The emperor said something with a sullen face, and the prince looked around at the young ladies from the noble families present. Then he raised his hand and pointed at me in the corner. 2. Let's go with her. The prince had a calm expression and spoke in a nonchalant manner. The nanny urged me to kneel down, and I heard envious voices from all around. How lucky is she to be favored by the prince, huh? I walked forward quickly and knelt down. Your servant Cheng Shiwan, I pay my respects to the emperor, empress, and his royal highness the crown prince. I remember now, Cheng Kaizheng's granddaughter. I have read the poems you wrote when you were young. You are a very talented girl, and you are also very beautiful. The old emperor looked at me with satisfaction. But I originally intended to appoint you as the principal wife to the southern king. The prince suddenly smiled and said, Father, I want her. Everyone in the palace knew that the emperor favored his eldest son, Prince Nand, and my grandfather, Cheng Kaizheng, was once Prince Nan's teacher. It was just a woman. The emperor finally nodded and said, Well, pass on my decree. Cheng Shiwan, the daughter of Minister Chung of the Ministry of Revenue, will be taken as the prince's concubine. Finally, the rest of the ladies were assigned to the 2 princes in turn. Li Wan from the general's mansion, and I entered the prince's mansion and became concubines. But the crown prince never even looked at me. Later I found out that he had already had a crush on someone for many years, but she was just a commoner girl, and the emperor refused to let her go. The emperor said that if he was willing to choose a concubine, he would allow the woman to enter the Eastern Palace and be a concubine to accompany him. Maybe it was because I was standing in a remote place and my humble and submissive look made him feel more obedient, so he pointed at me casually. Li Wan returned to the general's mansion to wait for her marriage, but I was sent directly to the East Palace. There was no 3 letters and 6 ceremonies, no guest banquet. The prince just sent someone to the Shangshu mansion to deliver the imperial edict. I think they would regret it if they knew I married into the Eastern Palace. The bridal chamber was simply decorated. I was wearing a wedding dress that didn't fit me so well. I sat by the bed for a long time, but the prince didn't come. Instead, I felt a little relieved. The candlelight beside me flickered, and under the veil, it reflected a faint red light. Chin Jinxiu is now wearing her wedding dress and waiting for her husband to pick her veil, and then the wedding night. But I am a concubine and have no right to own those things. Miss, how about I go out and take a look? Perhaps the prince's political affairs are delayed. Mo Xiang asked tentatively while standing aside. I shook my head and sat quietly. The Pingyong Marquis mansion must have been noisy with guests at this time, and the groom would always be forced to drink. I remember that he couldn't drink much. He passed out after drinking only one glass of the osmanthus, wine that had been buried in the yard for a year when he was a child. I don't know why, but many past memories suddenly appeared in my mind, flooding in like a tide. 3. I lost my mother when I was young and was raised in Suzhou by my grandparents. Zhang Ziyu and my family are neighbors. We have been together since we were young and are true childhood sweethearts. My grandfather said that girls should also be well-mannered and sensible, so he sent me to a private school. There were not many people there, and they were all young masters and young ladies from wealthy families. We read books and wrote poems together, and he often took me fishing, playing in the mud, climbing trees, catching birds, and even riding horses. A hereditary young marquis, but without the slightest bit of dignity and calmness. He has a bad temper, but he is also an extremely smart young man. The teacher was still teaching the first page, but he could memorize the whole book after reading it once, and could even explain the meaning by quoting classics. I am as good as him in poetry and writing, but I am not as good as him in climbing trees and catching fish. The boy always raised his face proudly and said, Cheng Shiwan, you lost to me again. I was unwilling to give up, so one time when he was painting, I quietly climbed up the tree to see what he was painting, but I lost my balance and fell down. There was no pain as expected. Instead, she fell into the boy's arms. Cheng Shiwan, so stupid. Later, when I was older, in order to avoid suspicion, I stayed in my boudoir to embroider and play the piano. He would come to find me after school, sit by the window, kicking his legs, and looking at me playing the piano with sparkling eyes. Cheng Shiwan, I have something fun here. He pulled me all the way to the abandoned garden where we often played. There was an osmanthus tree there that was in full bloom, and the whole yard was filled with the fragrance of osmanthus. The entire osmanthus tree was left bare from all the damage. I stood aside holding a large jar of osmanthus flowers, watching him digging the soil in the dirt, laughing happily. Cheng Shiwan. The jar of osmanthus flowers remained buried for many years and was never touched except the second year, when he got really drunk. Later, the emperor summoned Marquis Pingyong back to the capital, and Zhang Ziyu was also brought back to the capital. When he left, his eyes were red and he shouted at me on the deck. Cheng Shiwan. Write a letter, Kyoto. His voice was blocked by the wind and came out intermittently, but it was not clear. I saw him leaning on the railing, waving at me and talking nonstop. Unfortunately, I can't hear it. Letters often arrive from Kyoto, all of which are delivered to me at full speed via the official post station, along with Kyoto's specialty fruits. He has beautiful handwriting that flows like water, but his tone is often rogue. Cheng Shiwan, when will you come to Kyoto? Why don't I go to Suzhou to find you? Or should I hire some robbers to kidnap you and bring you to Kyoto? Or maybe I can just kidnap you myself. Several years passed, and on the first day in Kyoto, at the city gate, I saw a young man in black riding a horse galloping towards me. He stopped in front of the carriage. His smile was a bit ruffian, but his eyes were clear and bright. I heard that Miss Ching is extremely beautiful. Why not take her back and make her my wife? Mo Xiang didn't recognize him and scolded him as a lecher, but I couldn't help laughing in the carriage and forgot the rules for a moment, so I wanted to lift the curtain and go out. But there was a hand pressing down the curtain, and his handsome face was vaguely visible through the gauze. It's against the rules, Cheng Shiwan. I heard that you were back in Beijing, so I couldn't help but come to see you. It's a bit abrupt. I'll visit the Cheng family tomorrow. He rarely behaves in a reserved manner, but it is for the sake of my daughter's reputation. The night after I failed in my struggle against fate, I curled up in my quilt and cried the whole night. My heart was twisted and in so much pain. Meanwhile, in the yard next door, there was a bustle of preparations for the wedding. Cheng Jinxiu wore the wedding dress that I spent 3 months embroidering. She turned around in front of me and smiled proudly. Sister, look, am I pretty? Tomorrow, I will be the young lady of Pingyang Marquis. Cheng Shiwan, Cheng Shiwan, Cheng Shiwan. Deep in my memory, the boy smiled brightly and called my name. Suddenly, a strange voice sounded in my ears. Your name is Cheng what? My thoughts were interrupted, and when I came to my senses, I saw a pair of brocade boots. It belonged to a man. What's your name, Cheng? He asked again. My heart sank, and I suddenly realized that I was already in the East Palace. My lord, my name is Yuan. He hummed and lifted the veil. I saw that although the prince in front of me was wearing wedding clothes, he did not have the joy of a newlywed. Although he was not very handsome, his facial features were delicate and regular, and he had an innate royal temperament, which made him look particularly noble. The servants were all sent away. Jiu Yuan, I'm busy with official business. Sorry to have kept you waiting for so long. Undress now. His words almost made my heart tremble, and my knuckles turned white, but I still suppressed my fear and undressed the prince. I was afraid that he would touch me, and even now, I am still afraid. When I was lying next to him, my heart was trembling and I had to hold back my tears. Fortunately, he closed his eyes and fell asleep without doing anything. The next day, according to etiquette, the prince and I went to the palace to pay homage to the queen. Although she was serious, she was not harsh. She only asked me to copy a scroll of scriptures to offer in the Buddhist temple. I knelt before the Buddha, clasped my hands together, closed my eyes, and prayed. Please bless John Ziyu to be safe and sound, have many children and grandchildren, and finally, please let him forget me. 4. What happened at the Pingyang Marquis mansion last night caused a sensation, and everyone in the palace knew about it. After copying the scriptures, I strolled in the imperial garden with a group of female relatives, and they had a lively discussion. I heard that after the young marquis lifted the bride's veil, he smashed the wedding wine, took off her wedding dress and tore it to pieces, and wanted to send the bride back. Miss Cheng was so scared that she burst into tears and really made a big fuss in the bridal chamber. I listened on the side, turned my face away and pretended that my eyes were blinded by the wind, and wiped away the falling tears with my fingers. But a few ladies looked towards me and whispered to each other. I heard that the crown prince's concubine grew up with the young marquis, but the Cheng family married their youngest daughter to her, probably hiding it from the young marquis. TSK. It turns out that the crown prince's concubine had a love affair before she got married. She has no sense of shame. I walked up to the snickering lady with a normal expression, raised my hand, and gave her a loud slap in the face. Everyone was stunned. The person who was beaten was Mrs. Liu, the wife of the Minister of War. She always loved to gossip. She widened her eyes in shock. How dare you hit me? I'm your elder. Before she could finish her words, I slapped her again, causing her to lose balance and take 2 steps back, almost falling down. I looked calm and coldly at her. Madame Liu, I am the prince's concubine and the daughter-in-law of the royal family. If you dare to talk about me, you're talking about the royal family. What's more, my elders are His Majesty and the Queen. You dare to talk about the royal family and call yourself an elder. These 2 slaps are considered light, madam. Please remember this. When I was leaving the palace, as luck would have it, I bumped into someone. Zhang Ziyu stood at the palace gate, leading a horse, his figure slender. He seemed to be waiting for me specially. He noticed the movement, turned around, and looked at me quietly with a pair of deep eyes, with a faint bruise under his eyes. I haven't seen him for a long time. I have been in Kyoto for more than a year. I am not like Chung Jinxiu, who is taken out by her mother to show up in public, to appreciate flowers today and to poetry reading tomorrow. I am just an unfavored daughter of the first wife, raised outside the capital and ignored by everyone. Zhang Ziyu and I seldom meet each other because of the gender difference. Even if he comes to the Shongshu mansion, he can only go to see my father, just like the first time we met in Kyoto. My father only asked Chung Jinxiu to go to the front hall to meet me, claiming that I had caught a cold and could not see anyone. When he left home, I eagerly ran to the top of the attic and looked at him from afar. We hadn't seen each other for several years, and he recognized me at a glance. His eyes lit up instantly, his face was full of joy, and he waved and smiled at me. Afterwards, Chung Jinxiu filed a complaint, and my father spanked me with 30 sticks and made me kneel in the ancestral hall because I violated the moral codes of a woman and had an affair with a man other than myself. Later, it was heard that he went to the palace to ask the Queen Mother for help and held a buffet banquet. The wife of Marquis Pingyong personally sent an invitation to Zhang, inviting her to attend the banquet with her 2 daughters. At the banquet, he was sitting opposite me, lip-syncing to me, and I lowered my head and smiled. During the banquet, I sneaked out to meet him in the back garden. Although I knew it was against etiquette, I still went there resolutely despite Emo Xiang's obstruction. Under the peach tree, the boy's words were simple and clear, but the look in his eyes when he looked at me was exceptionally firm. Ten Kite. Zhang Ziyu called me softly, pulling me back from my memories. His voice was a little hoarse, and his eyes were a little red. I looked at him, and my heart ached instantly. I felt a sour feeling in my throat. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. I could only try my best to suppress my heartache. Shi Yuan. He called my name again, and my tears fell uncontrollably to the ground. The 2 calls of Shi Yuan seemed like the longing that lasted a lifetime, and finally, they were gently blown away by the wind. All right. He seemed to want to say something, but in the end he didn't speak. He jumped onto the horse, pulled the reins hard, and galloped forward, raising a cloud of dust. His back looked lonely and desolate, and he walked farther and farther away until he finally disappeared. I felt a little dizzy and took 2 steps back unconsciously. Emo Xiang supported me, but turned away reluctantly. I lowered my eyes and said, "Go back." When I returned to the East Palace, the prince was feeding fish by the pond with a woman in pink. It was the first time I saw him so affectionate. He hugged the woman and was very gentle. Emo Xiang said, "Miss, that is the prince's sweetheart, Lu Yunyao, who is from a merchant family." Emo Xiang, don't call me miss anymore. We are no longer the same as before. Yes. The prince was probably out handling official business, and when passing by the lotus pond, only Lu Yunyao was left, sitting in the pavilion board. I didn't plan to stay, but she called me and said, "Please stay, sir. Can you sit with me in the pavilion? My master is concubine Chang, and you are just a concubine. It would be fine if you didn't take the initiative to pay her a visit, but you actually act like the master." Emo Xiang couldn't stand it anymore and confronted her directly. Lu Yunyao smiled apologetically, stood up and saluted me. "My lady, I grew up in the market and don't know the rules. I hope you can forgive me." I entered the pavilion and sat down and told Emo Xiang to wait outside the pavilion. Lu Yunyao probably had something to say to me. "Miss Chung, I heard that you have a lover," she suddenly said. I said calmly, "What do you want to say?" Lu Yunyao quickly said, "No, I just want to say that I will not compete with you for the crown prince. I'm already married. This time it's my turn to be shocked. Having been married, how can I enter the Eastern Palace? She said with a bit of helplessness. A few years ago, I accidentally saved the prince once. Later, I got married, and the prince found me and didn't care that I was already a married woman. Later, I was ostracized and divorced by my husband's family. I was grateful that the prince didn't abandon me and took me in. I saw that she was fair-skinned, beautiful, and well-built. She looked like a married woman. There seemed to be some worry in her eyes. I patted her hand and said, "Don't worry. There is no cannibalism in the palace. Don't be afraid." At dinner time, Lu Yinyao asked me to join her. I thought about it and went over, but I didn't expect that the prince was there too. Lu Yinyao winked at me and said, "Hurry up and sit down." According to the rules, Lu Yunyao's status is low, so this is not in accordance with etiquette, but I paused and still sat down. During the meal, the prince kept picking up food for Lu Yunyao. I stood aside and pretended to be an outsider, picking up food and eating quietly. Lu Yunyao looked at me and then at the prince. He casually picked up a piece of fish for me. My chopsticks froze for a moment, and I went to pick up other dishes to eat. Chung. Concubine, do you not like the dish I picked for you? Or do you like to eat something else? The prince looked at me, and there seemed to be something else in his eyes. Your Highness, I can eat it, Lu Yunyao said to smooth things over, and then she tried to take the piece of fish from my bowl. But the prince just looked at me relentlessly. My heart sank. The matter of Pingyang Marquis Mansion must have spread throughout Kyoto. He must know about it. I took the lead in picking up the fish and put down my chopsticks after finishing it. Thank you, Your Highness. I like it. Since you like it so much, I will ask the kitchen to cook another fish and send it to the concubine for her to enjoy. Mo Xiang wanted to say something, but was stopped by my eyes. Thank you for your grace, Your Highness. I will return home in 2 days. I wonder if Your Highness. I asked tentatively. The prince was wiping the corner of Lu Yunyao's mouth and didn't even look at me. Lu Yunyao also looked at me with some embarrassment and an apologetic look in her eyes. After a long while, the prince said casually, I have to handle government affairs for my father, so please go by yourself, concubine. On the way back, Mo Xiang kept whispering to herself that she was injustice for me, but I just smiled and didn't say anything. Although he doesn't care about me, I still have the title of the prince's concubine. Until I die, I can only be the prince's person. I have been allergic to fish since I was a child. I would get rashes all over my body, which were itchy and painful. When I was a child, Zhang Ziyu brought me fish cakes when I was in a private school. I was covered in rashes, which was so scary that the children at the next table stayed away from me. He carried me on his back and ran to find a doctor, sweating all over his forehead. Afterwards, he was punished by the Marquis of Pingyang for skipping the scholars' class and disrupting the order. However, he came to me the next day with a playful smile on his face, as if nothing had happened. In the past, my grandparents were most averse to having fish in the house, and so was Zhang Ziyu. Unfortunately, that was all in the past. I lay gently on the bed, not daring to move. Mo Xiang applied medicine to me with concern, choking and saying, when the young marquis was here, the young lady would never have suffered such grievances. My nose felt sore. I bit my lips and trembled slightly, then buried my head in the quilt. 5. It was cloudy and rainy on the day I returned home. The prince really kept his promise and did not show up. Instead, it was Lu Yunyao who saw me out. Sure, Yuan, come back soon. When we arrived at the Shangshu mansion, we saw my father and Zhang standing at the gate with smiles on their faces from afar. They looked around for a long time, but saw that I was the only one getting off the carriage, and their faces immediately fell. I thought you were lucky to be favored by His Royal Highness the Crown Prince, but you turned out to be so useless. Why did you come back alone?" My father looked very annoyed. The Crown Prince is busy with government affairs. Before he could finish his words, he slapped me in the face. I closed my eyes out of habit, but I was not hit for a long time. When I opened my eyes, I saw Zhang Ziyu appeared in front of me at some point, grabbing my father's wrist with one hand, his face grim. His back was still very tall. He was wearing a black cloak and a jade crown to tie his hair, looking particularly cold and stern. "Master Chung, please don't do anything in front of me." I heard that he had just inherited the title and had gone to the palace to ask for an imperial decree. He would be sent to guard the border soon. The old marquis had originally arranged for him to enter the officialdom, and he was almost angry to the point of vomiting blood, but he still insisted on his decision. "The marquis is right. Never mind, Shi Yuan. Go in quickly." My father then smiled awkwardly and let me go. I didn't say anything and was supported by Mo Xiang as I walked in. Behind me, I heard Chung Jinxiu's coquettish voice. "Daddy, Mommy, I miss you so much." I seemed like the most unwelcome guest and sat in a secluded place during the meal, listening to them chatting about family matters. My father and Zhang kept trying to talk to Zhang Ziyu, but he acted as if he didn't hear them and ignored them. The only time he showed any emotion was when he saw a plate of fish placed in front of me. Chung Jinxiu loved eating fish, especially fish eyes. She thought nothing was more beautiful after eating them, so fish was provided in the Shangshu mansion all year round. Chung Jinxiu probably wanted to look good in front of Zhang Ziyu, so she specially added a piece of fish for me. "Sister, eat this fish. It's very delicious." She smiled sweetly and obediently, and while smiling she looked at Zhang Ziyu, as if she was a caring sister picking up food for her sister. She really didn't know that I couldn't eat fish. No one in the Chung family knew about it, and no one cared at all. Zhang Ziyu's face darkened for a moment, and he almost immediately picked up my bowl and handed it to the servant. "Change it and take the fish away." I suddenly remembered that I ate a whole fish 2 days ago, and the prince even sent a nanny to supervise me and watch me finish it. I knew that the prince was punishing me for my past and those rumors. I stayed in bed for 2 whole days, and to this day the itching on my back still hasn't subsided. Everyone's faces were a little stiff, especially Chung Jinxiu, who stared at me with almost resentment, as if she wanted to eat me alive. We didn't say a word until he left, but his burning gaze stayed on me and I kept my head down. As soon as Zhang Ziyu left, Chung Jinxiu complained and accused him. "Sister, you are already a concubine now, and you seduced my husband. You are as shameless as before." "Dad, look at my sister." Zhang hugged Chung Jinxiu and cried, "My poor daughter. Shi Yuan is your sister. It is only right for us to be tolerant." My father also looked annoyed. He wanted to slap me again, but I took a step back and his hit missed. He pointed at me, furious, the wrinkles on his face trembling. "You unfilial daughter. Do you think you can do whatever you want and disrespect your parents just because you are the prince's concubine? Go kneel in the yard and don't get up until dark." He turned away and went to the hall to comfort his wife and daughter. I knelt on the steps, with the rain falling densely on my face and body. I felt a little cold, but I could bear it. I saw Chung Jinxiu raising her face smugly and looking contemptuous. She said, "How can you marry the prince? Haha, even if you are lucky enough to be the prince's concubine, so what? Now I am the marquise, Chung Shiwan. Don't even think about competing with me." She seems to always care about competing with me, but she obviously has everything. In fact, I initially thought that my father brought me to Kyoto because he finally remembered me as his daughter. Unfortunately, it was not the case. He didn't like me, and it was only because Zhang suggested that I was old enough to get married. So my father took me here and found a good marriage for me in the palace. I knelt in the rain for a long time until it was dark. Mo Xiang helped me up. The room was brightly lit with dim yellow lights. The three of them were talking affectionately to each other. It was so warm. I limped onto the carriage, forced myself to return to the warm room in the East Palace, and then fell down. I don't know what time it was, but in a daze, I felt like someone was holding my hand, talking to me, and calling my name. Cheng Shiwan. I think it must not be the prince, because he didn't remember my name at all. He just paused and then called me concubine Cheng. When I woke up the next day, it was Lu Yunyao who was decocting medicine for me. She even blew it cool and fed it to me. She said that I had slept for 2 days and was confused due to the fever. After my fever subsided, Li Wan, the daughter of the general, finally entered the mansion with a generous dowry. She was like a fairy who was not of this world. When she came to the East Palace, she was curious about everything. The prince seemed to like her very much and doted on her. I was teaching Lu Yinyao how to play chess in the pavilion. She suddenly stopped and looked at the other end of the garden. Li Wan was happily picking peach blossoms, and the prince was brushing the petals out of her hair with his hands. Lu Yunyao smiled faintly. This chess game is really difficult to play. She was probably sad because the prince was so good to her that he even took 2 concubines reluctantly for her. Now this good thing will be shared with others. I heard that the next day after returning home, the young marquis went directly to guard the border without saying goodbye to anyone. I am glad that he went far away to realize his ambitions. The emperor once said, "The young man of the Zhan family is born free and easy, and is destined not to be trapped in these palace walls." 6. The prince is a very gentle person. At least on the surface, he is respectful and will not bully others, even though he deliberately punished me by making me eat fish that time. But I always remember the kindness he showed me on the night I first arrived at the East Palace. If I was abandoned by the prince on my virginity, I would have no place to stand in the future, so even though he didn't want to come, he still came and slept with me in my clothes. Although he doesn't care about many people and many things, he will be considerate of the woman's survival. I think a husband like this is already very good. During the 4 years, the emperor's favorite prince of the south died of illness, and the power of the prince of the north in the court weakened. So after the emperor passed away in the 4th year, the prince succeeded to the throne smoothly. I became concubine Cheng, Lu Yunyao became concubine Yao, and Li Wan, because General Li helped the emperor ascend the throne, became concubine Li in one step. The imperial concubine's elegant attire looked particularly inappropriate on her petite body. Li Wan shook the heavy headdress and held my hand in distress. "Sister Xian, it's so heavy." She is the youngest, only 18 years old now, and always looks innocent, which makes Lu Yunyao envious. Now you are the highest-ranking official in the harem. In the future, when selecting concubines, all the concubines in the 3 palaces and 6 courtyards will come to pay their respects to you. I joked, and Lu Yunyao also smiled with her hands covering her lips. There's still a talent show. 3 palaces and 6 courtyards. Li Wan lowered her head. Yes, the 3 palaces and 6 courtyards. These women have been locked up within the palace walls their entire lives. Before the selection of concubines took place, Princess Chaogui's niece Xian entered the palace through the back door. She was a cousin of the Marquis of Pingyang. I had heard about her from Zhang Ziyu before. He has been stationed at the border for many years and has not had any news at all. Except for the death of the previous emperor, he came back once and left in a hurry. Cheng Jinxiu has been staying in the Pingyang Marquis mansion, acting like a marquise all year round, but Zhang Ziyu never sends her a letter, as if she is living a widow. I saw her a few days ago. She had a head of lush green hair but looked extremely haggard. She stared at me with a resentful look in her eyes. Even Liwan noticed it and said in surprise, "Sister Shi Yuan, she seems to have a big grudge against you." I smiled and said nothing. Concubine Xian has been favored by the emperor recently. She is flamboyant, arrogant, and bold. A few days ago, the three of us were playing mahjong in the palace, and concubine Xian brought the emperor to my palace to hang out on purpose, saying that we were gathering together to gamble and bringing a bad influence to the harem. The emperor had no choice but to send someone to collect the cards and fine us our monthly salary. When she was forced to leave, Liwan took back all her money, which she had won with great difficulty. Concubine Xian had sharp eyes. She directly snatched the pile of silver from Liwan's arms, feeling very proud. Liwan was reflecting on her mistakes in seclusion in the palace. It was said that she wrote concubine Xian's name 1,000 times, cursing as she wrote. Not long after, concubine Xian was promoted to concubine Xian. She seemed to like targeting me and would always arrogantly pick away the delicacies in front of me when we were having meals. But I don't eat fish either, so let her do it. The border was victorious, with Pingyong Ho making the greatest contribution. When he returned to the capital, the emperor prepared a welcoming banquet for him. I met him for the first time after several years. The tender face of the boy is no longer there. After several years at the border, he is still handsome, but with a sense of vicissitudes. His whole temperament has become firm and upright, and he has a more decisive and murderous spirit. I was sitting in a sedan chair walking along the palace road, and he was walking towards me from the other end in a black robe with steady steps. "My lord, it's been a long time since we last met. Are you doing well?" He stared at me quietly, his dark eyes like a pool. "How are you, my lady?" I nodded, hiding the sadness in my eyes. The emperor treats me very well. He likes my sensible, obedient, and low-key personality. No matter how busy he is every month, he always stays in my palace twice. Last year, he promoted me to the rank of imperial concubine. Liwan has been ill since last year and has been taking medicine ever since. The emperor has visited her many times and given her many expensive medicines, but there has been no improvement. So now, I am the one who takes care of the harem. Then I'm fine. He bowed to me, and we passed each other again in the wide palace road, gradually moving away. 7. Liwan's illness was getting worse. She huddled in the quilt and looked at me with dizzy eyes. "Sister Shi Yuan, didn't the emperor come?" She has always liked the emperor very much since the day she entered the Eastern Palace at the age of 14. How could I not be moved by such gentle treatment and devoted care? It's a pity that the emperor has been gentle to everyone. "Silly girl, the emperor is here while you are sleeping." I choked a little. A sad smile appeared on her face, and she seemed to have guessed something, such as that the emperor did not come at all. Lu Yunyao turned her face away and remained silent. Liwan finally lowered her hands. She came with a thick dowry, full of joy, and left innocently and sadly. She died at the age of 22. When the emperor found out about this, he was grief-stricken for a long time. He posthumously conferred the title of Queen Wenchun on Li Wan and rewarded the entire Li family. However, a year later, General Li was suspected of buying and selling military positions, and the once famous general's mansion was exiled or beheaded. After hearing this, Lu Yunyao was not too surprised, as if she had guessed it long ago. She just laughed coldly. After all, the emperor was quite good to us old people, and Lu Yunyao was his former sweetheart, so he would send all kinds of rare antiques to her palace. But I clearly understand that it is not true love. Just like he does to me, he would touch my soft hair and hold me in his arms. Chung. Imperial concubine, he still didn't know my name, but just changed the title from concubine to concubine Chung, and now to imperial concubine. After Li Wan's death, Lu Yunyao gradually became a little crazy. She would not laugh if she didn't want to. Even when it came to the emperor, she changed from her usual gentle self and had a cold face. When the conflict happened that day, I was embroidering a sachet for Lu Yunyao. She liked my embroidery skills, so I agreed to embroider it for her. That annoying concubine Xian stood aside, saying this was wrong. Then that was wrong. Mo Xiang came hurriedly to report that Lu Yunyao had stabbed the emperor. I didn't bother to argue with concubine Xian and rushed over. I saw that the emperor's wound had been bandaged by the imperial physician, and there was a faint trace of blood on the ground. He looked at Lu Yunyao with a gloomy face. I have treated you well. I saved your life that day. You have lived a life of luxury over the years. What else are you not satisfied with? You actually secretly drank the contraceptive soup. Lu Yunyao smiled sadly, with mockery in her eyes. To repay you, you forced my husband to death and asked me to serve in the East Palace? Ha ha ha. You broke up my marriage, dragged me into this cannibalistic devil's cave, and trapped me here. Is this how you repay your life-saving grace? You know we have been married for 2 years. We are in perfect harmony, loving and happy. Why did I save you, but ended up like this? Ha 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 ha. My heart sank as I looked at Lu Yunyao with a crazy smile on her face and tears falling from her eyes. I didn't do that on purpose. The emperor was slightly startled. In his opinion, or in the opinion of everyone, Lu Yunyao was deeply favored. But she came from a merchant family, and there were always many people talking about her in private, and she could only smile bitterly when she heard them. Lu Yunyao looked at me, her eyes welling with tears, but her smile was particularly bright, as if she was saying her final goodbye to me. Suddenly, she took out a dagger and stabbed towards my chest. The time was too short and no one around her had time to stop her. She slowly withered and died like a flower and gradually fell in a pool of blood. The sachet I promised was half embroidered and is still lying on the table in my palace. The emperor hugged her and called her Yao. My eyes were a little wet, but looking at the smile on her lips, she seemed relaxed. She passed away suddenly, on the Lantern Festival. Perhaps Li Wan's death touched her, or perhaps she herself was struggling for freedom. I suddenly remembered that when she chatted with me, she always mentioned her envy of ordinary people, and her ex-husband took her to the night market during the Lantern Festival in advance. But we have never been out of the palace for so many years. The farthest we have ever been from the palace is to go to the city wall with the emperor at the end of the year to watch the fireworks and accept the worship of all the people. But many years ago, when I was in Suzhou, every Lantern Festival, Zhang Ziyu would hold my hand and take me to watch the fire-breathing show and walk through the alleys of Jiangnan filled with the hustle and bustle of life. The hot roasted taro had just come out of the oven. I held it in my hand and kept blowing on it because it was so hot, and he was laughing with joy. I seemed to have lived these years in a numb state, doing my best to be a concubine and taking care of the 6 harems. It seemed that this was how I should be, and yet how I shouldn't be. I can obviously ride a horse on the grass, write good articles, and see the mountains and rivers with the one I love, with my children and grandchildren around me, and stay together until old age. Concubine Xian pushed me and pulled my hair. I cried out in pain, but she just laughed heartlessly. "You're so stupid. You deserve it." She probably thought it was very funny, so after Li Wan and Lu Yunyao passed away one after another, she always came to my palace to make trouble. Today she accidentally smashed the vase, and tomorrow she picked the flowers in the yard. She also complained that the emperor was partial, rewarding me with rare treasures and flowers, but not giving her any. Perhaps concubine Xian is the most energetic person in the entire palace now. Not long after, the emperor made me the queen. Although it was beyond my expectations, I was not surprised. My father came to the palace to pay me a visit. He stood in front of me with a look of joy on his face. Look, if your father hadn't sent you to the palace, you wouldn't have had the good fortune to become the queen. Zhang also smiled awkwardly. Yes, your father is still good at seeing things. I glanced at Mo Xiang, and she immediately understood and said, "Everyone must kneel before the queen, master and madam. Please don't break the rules. It's a crime of disrespecting the royal family." Zhang was so scared that she immediately knelt down. No matter how strong my father was, he could only kneel down unwillingly. He didn't dare to insult me at will anymore, just because I was the queen, second only to the emperor. The emperor treats me with respect and is very kind to me. After Liu Yuniao left, he often came to my palace. He always rested his head on my knees, slept peacefully, and liked to talk to me. He asked me the same question he had on our wedding night. "Queen, what is your name?" 10 yuan. I lowered my eyes and looked at the other side where sweet osmanthus flowers were scattered on the ground. "It's a nice name, Shi Yuan. You are quiet and don't like to talk much. Now, it seems that you are the only one left by my side." Such gentle words could not create a ripple in my heart. I know that before long, he will have a new girlfriend by his side, and those women will disappear like passing clouds. 8. During the 8th year of the New Deal, there were fierce battles on the border. At first, news of victories kept coming, but for some unknown reason, there were defeats one after another. The emperor was very angry and issued several imperial decrees, demanding that Marquis Pingyong withdraw his troops, but there was no response at all. He is not an arrogant person. Over the years, he has been almost invincible and has always maintained peace on the border. But defeat is defeat, and the emperor will not listen to any explanation from him. Half a month later, because of the rampant plague caused by the war, the emperor was worried all day in the imperial study and urged the imperial hospital to develop medicine. I led everyone in the harem to pray in the Chihua Hall, praying that the cholera would subside and that he would return safely. At this time, the people sent to detain Pingyong Marquis also returned to the capital, and the emperor replaced him with another civil official who had always advocated peace talks to go to the neighboring country to negotiate peace. Zhang Ziyu did not beg for mercy or admit his mistake, but demanded a thorough investigation of the spies in the court. When he heard that peace talks were about to begin, he even argued in front of the palace. The emperor was furious and imprisoned him in the sky prison and executed him 5 days later. Zhang Ziyu was concubine Xian's cousin. She was also anxious and went to the emperor to plead for mercy, but was reprimanded and sent back. As soon as he came back, he grabbed my clothes and said, "Cheng Shiwan, go save him. He has been guarding you for so many years. Why aren't you sad? Don't you have a heart?" It turns out she knew it too. I asked someone to drag him out and then locked myself in the room, not eating or drinking for 3 days, and no one was allowed to come in. Mo Xiang was very worried, thinking that I would do something crazy. On the 3rd day, when I came out, except for my red eyes and a weak body, my complexion was normal. I ordered a large table of dishes and ate 2 bowls of rice. When I was halfway through the meal, concubine Xian rushed into the palace with red eyes and overturned the table. She scolded me for being heartless and for being so careless while enjoying all the delicacies here. The more she said, the worse it got, but I didn't care and just walked out. I went outside the changing hall and knelt down upright. The eunuch informed the emperor several times, but he refused to see me. At night, it was drizzling, and the eunuch came out of the hall with an umbrella. "Your Majesty, the emperor asked you to go back. Please pass on the message, sir. I have something important to report to you." He sighed and finally walked away helplessly. I knelt stubbornly and refused to get up. I knelt for a whole day and night. My clothes were soaked by the rain at night and dried by the sun during the day. My hair was scattered on my chest, a little messy. The emperor walked up to me and said in a cold tone, "The queen really has a deep affection for the Marquis of Pingyang. I thought you should have forgotten her favor for so many years." He suddenly grabbed my chin and forced me to look up. I looked at him calmly and said, "I don't understand what the emperor said. I am here to share the emperor's worries." As I said this, I took out a stack of books from my sleeve and handed them over. "I saw that your majesty was worried about the plague after the war, and I couldn't bear it, so I wrote 10 strategies for disaster relief. If I can help your majesty, I will be satisfied." He took it with some surprise, and as he flipped through it, a look of surprise gradually appeared on his face. "I have had some thoughts about the plague. My grandfather has been telling me about the sufferings of the people since I was a child. He said, if Yuanar were a man, with your talent, you would definitely be able to make plans for the people in the court. It's just that the harem is not allowed to interfere in politics, and I don't want to be pushed to the forefront, so I never say too much. This policy paper only has the first 5 chapters. What about the remaining half?" "The other half is in my heart." I pointed to my heart. After a long while, he laughed out loud. "Queen, my vision is very accurate. You are really capable." 9. It was cold and damp in the prison. The eunuch who announced the imperial decree walked at the front and took me to number 1, where the royal family was imprisoned. Through the thick iron railings, I saw Zhang Ziyu with shackles on his hands, sitting on some dry grass against the wall. He closed his eyes as if he was asleep. His body was covered with scars, and he didn't know when a scar appeared on his face. The father-in-law announced the decree to strip him of his title and send him into exile, and that the women in his family would be taken into the palace as maids. He probably heard it, and with a faint smile on his lips, he didn't even raise his eyelids and had no intention of accepting the decree at all. I took the imperial edict and glanced at my father-in-law, and he went out immediately. I opened the cell door, walked in, and took out a few dishes from the basket, all of which were his favorites. I haven't cooked for many years, so my cooking skills are a bit rusty. He noticed the movement, opened his eyes and saw me, and was stunned for a moment. He lowered his head and ate the food seriously, showing a sincere smile and saying, "Fortunately, it's not you who got involved." I stayed briefly and left in a hurry. On the day he left Kyoto, I stayed in the palace and didn't go anywhere. I heard that concubine Xian went to see him off, and the Pingyang Marquis' mansion was raided, and Sheng Jinxiu, as the Marquise, was sent to the palace as a maid. She was the one who should have entered the palace back then, but as fate would have it, she has indeed entered the palace, but she is the most lowly maid, and I am the most honorable queen. I didn't bear a grudge against her anymore. I just assigned her the job of washing toilets, which might be suitable for her. The emperor has always treated me with respect, and I have taken care of the concubines, managed the harem, and been a virtuous queen. Later, concubine Xian gave birth to a prince, but unfortunately she suffered from a difficult labor and hemorrhage. Before she died, she entrusted the child to me but was very harsh in her words. "Cheng Shiwan, take good care of my son, or I will turn into a ghost and come to the palace every day to find you and strangle you to death." She wanted to open her mouth to say something, but she had no strength left. I smiled, but tears flowed unconsciously. I held the little baby in my arms. He was waving his little hands and grabbing something in the air. He was the only child in the palace. I took good care of him and accompanied him in his studies and calligraphy. He was not as bad-tempered as his mother and always called me mother in a very obedient manner. In the 10th year of the New Deal, news came from the border that Zhang Ziyu had died in the army due to illness. This news inexplicably reached my palace. I know that the emperor wants me to hear it. When he was playing with the little prince in the imperial garden, he was having fun with a little girl. The two of them squatted in the grass and looked at the crickets curiously. I was sitting in the pavilion, and emotion was rubbing my knees. Perhaps it was due to the illness I had suffered back then, but my knees would hurt so much on cloudy days that I couldn't get out of bed, and my eyes would sometimes be blurry and I couldn't see clearly. Suddenly, I seemed to see a young man not far away, walking through the crowd and striding towards me with a bowl of hot roasted taro in his hand. And I was holding a rabbit lantern, wearing a red butterfly and rainflower skirt, and a fox fur cloak, standing gracefully on the street of Shangyuan, waiting for him with a smile. I also saw him under the peach tree. His eyes were serious, and he said to me word by word, "Cheng Shiwan, wait for me. I will definitely marry you with a grand ceremony." In the next life, Zhanziyu, you said that you would marry me with a grand ceremony.